And you're not the first. I mean, a lot of bodybuilders put themselves in that position where they give all they have. It's sink or swim. It's that type of a sport. I'm not sure if I'd call it pressure, because now when the interview's done, when the workout's over, you go back home and you think of your next meal, you think of your next workout, you work on your next posing. Everything is focused towards the goal at hand, and you've got a little bit more than a week and a half to get ready for this back east. What a huge feather in your cap it would be to take these guys out. But at the same time, isn't that what you expect? Don't you expect victory in New York? And if that happens, you start from scratch all over again anyway. That's what happened at the Nationals. You were there, you won, and you had to start over. You took a year before you decided to pick a show, and you didn't pick just a random contest. This has history. You know it's got depth and talent, and you know that this can change your career. The guys that have won the New York Pro, from Robbie Robinson, Phil Hill, Mike Christian, Lee Haney, this is a show that launches careers. Kai Green, Phil Heath. I mean, you know the guys that have won this show. So this is one that you chose intentionally, and you put yourself in this position. So bodybuilder to bodybuilder, I'm trying to find out where's the pressure. I mean, this is what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good point. You're right. Because the kind of person I am, if I did a smaller show around here and I beat nobody, I would feel worse, because then there's still that what if. Am I really good? Is it just that nobody showed up? You know, the question, the mystery when you do a show is almost worse than losing. I would rather probably lose to somebody really well, and I'm going to get better. I'm going to get back in the gym, and I'm not going to quit in this. I'm just saying I'm just going to have to figure out some way financially that I'm going to have to save my ass again. But yeah, I would for sure rather go into a show, get hit by a real pro, than enter a show where there's not really any qualified pros doing it, and then I walk away thinking I'm good, which happens a lot on the amateur level, and guys will do a lot of smaller local shows, and you start to think I'm the biggest guy in the gym, I'm the best guy in my town, and then you step on a national stage and then you're in last call out and you're like, man, what's going on? And that's your reality check of knowing where you really stand or who you stand next to. Everyone wants to tell me about how good I look, or I'm going to be this in the future, and really you're only saying that because I'm standing next to people that aren't pros. That it doesn't count. It's who you stand next to and when you stand next to them. This past weekend's a perfect example. I'm a week out from a show, and people are telling me I look better than people that were at the show. That shows they know nothing about bodybuilding at all. These guys are in the off season eating 10,000 calories a day. Of course I better look like I'm in better condition than them. So with this show, I'm really excited, to tell you the truth. To me, there's pressure because I need to think about my livelihood, and just also, I have a family and I have people that I need to take care of. But I'm excited myself to see where I'm at, because, man, if I could go into my pro debut and beat some guys that I look up to, man, that's like the best gift there is.
So let's talk about that. What has to happen? I mean, you got a little look a week ago at six-time Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath. You got a real up-close look at what age can do to a bodybuilder like Dexter Jackson at 47 years old, and he's still doing the business. Big Ramy. You're right, they're off season, but there you were. It's almost like getting able to practice with the pros, and you have yet to step on a pro stage. So when you go in this gym, what are you thinking? What's going on in your mind? Are you thinking about the show or just this workout?
Luckily, the best thing about me moving out here has been able to train and have Sean Roden mentor me, and then every now and then I'll train with Dexter. If I had to pick the two people that embody longevity in the sport, it's them. So if anything, they've instilled that in me, that even if you don't win today, really the guys who do win in the long run are the ones who keep their lines and keep their body together for the long haul. It's the tortoise that wins the race. So that's something that I kind of keep in the back of my head, and I try and remind myself that because going to New York, I'm not going to be the biggest guy. I think even Akeem's going to outweigh me by like 40 pounds, and I'm not trying to play the size game. That's not me, and that's not what my name is trying to bring back into bodybuilding.
So then what is the objective? You're clearly not one of the biggest bodybuilders. You're not small, but what will you play to your strength in order to take out guys that are bigger than you?
Yeah, it's definitely condition. I mean, that's what they want nowadays, right? It's condition win shows. But I also, if in a roundabout way, if I can kind of bring back a little bit old school bodybuilding and kind of remind some people of what's kind of missing or dying a little bit in this sport, I feel like that's a niche that I can tap into that some guys that do outweigh me by 50 pounds, I can't. And like you were saying about with Pittsburgh and being on stage and, you know, with Phil and Dex, those guys are out of my league. I don't think about Phil or Dex ever in my life. Really, by the time I'm going to be in a contention, if that is even possible for the Olympia, those guys will be long gone. It was nice to stand next to Dallas. That's someone who I am going to be going toe-to-toe with. And you know what's really a nice reality check is when people that are 5-6 years younger than you are doing better than you and pushing you. That more pushes me more than thinking about 6-time Mr. Olympias or, you know, people like that. So that's more of what I'm thinking about. I'm more thinking about, for sure, myself, the now, but also the long run too. Is it worth destroying my body so that way I can win this show this week? And then really, because some of these guys are destroying their bodies, and no matter what they think, you can't fix it after that. Once you've blown your lines, that's it, they're gone.
So let me ask you about that, because I was very critical of Dallas in defeat. You know, Dallas had gotten second to Cedric McMillan at the Arnold Classic, went over to New Zealand and he got beat by Brandon Curry, who wasn't really talked about in the same category as a Dallas McCarver. And then a week after that, Dallas McCarver faints and gets beaten on stage again in Australia. As a journalist, I call things as I see them. It sounded like Dallas had thin skin, and on the other side, it sounded like I had it out for Dallas McCarver when all I'm doing is reporting the business. Do you listen to the media, or you ignore the media and just do your own thing? Because this is now a sport where it's interactive. You can reply to the media through your social media, but is that something that's we're seeing more and more of, bodybuilders that are paying attention to what the talking heads of the sport are doing, or are you paying more attention to what you need to be done?
I mean, yeah, that is something new that in today's bodybuilders that even yourself and my dad did not have to deal with. I say all the time, I promise you, you would not want to see my dad responding back to people on Instagram. But I actually talked to Dallas last week about you and about that whole situation. And, you know, one, the age definitely ties into that, but a lot of people don't know you, Sean, and how you are, and that's exactly what I told him. Is that, man, you're blatantly, you know, you're gonna tell the truth. You're gonna tell it. You're not gonna pull any punches, and that's how you are. But someone you've been in this sport for so long, you know that you'd almost rather take that over someone who's two-faced any day. Because in this sport, the one thing I'm learning the most is it's so hard to trust people. And I would rather take someone who, like you, will call me up and tell me I look like shit, I need to get my shit together and stop acting like an amateur and be a pro, rather than someone's telling me I'm looking really good and then I hear they said the opposite behind my back. So, but that's part of getting into the sport is one, learning that sometimes harshness is a lot better than sugarcoating. So I'd rather have that. But back to what you're saying with social media and stuff like that. See, I'm a completely different level. There's things that I deal with that no bodybuilder's ever dealt with in their life. If I do well, it's because of my dad. If I don't do well, it's because, oh, see, he's never gonna make it. I'm never, ever gonna win. And as long as I remember that, then I have nothing to worry about. There's never gonna be anyone who's gonna give me my props, because if I, like I said, if I do, it's only because, yeah, well, yeah, he should. I mean, I would do the same thing. If Arnold's son was competing and he won a show, everyone would say the same thing. Yeah, it's Arnold's son. Of course he's gonna win a show. Then if he loses, oh, he's never gonna live up to his dad. He's never gonna be like him.
So it is a heavy cross to carry, but at the same time, because your dad wasn't there for you in the category of a bodybuilding mentor, it's bittersweet. Because your dad is revered by anybody that's ever lifted a weight. You said you're a historian. I think the historians know the story. The people that are coming in 2 or 3 years into this business realize that your pedigree is coming from your dad. So, but as an athlete, we know that you can't just hand that down, because your dad wasn't there getting you out of the gym, wasn't force feeding the food, wasn't picking out the contest. You've kind of, like you said, you've taken the snail's pace to get to where you're at. And it's tough for me to relate, because I got there at 21, 22 years old, and the first shot out of the box, and the next thing you know, people are saying I got a silver spoon, but I had nobody really to show me the ropes in bodybuilding. I had to find my way. The bittersweet part is obviously you're Sergio Oliva Jr. Would you want to be anyone else? I mean, you saw what Labrada does with his son, and that's the other side. It's almost like the Snow White story, right? I mean, you got You got the girls that are being taken care of, and the outcast. What is the contrast? Because you worked with Labrada, you saw that dynamic of father-son that you didn't have, and the things that could have been. But here you sit. You're in a situation where you've put your place that you have to win, and over there, it looks like peaches and cream.
Right. I say all the time too. It's not only that I'm the first child of an Olympian to go pro, but
also an immigrant.
Right. Also, too, you know, and that's also another thing, too, but touching back to what you're saying about me learning more what my dad had to deal with. I can't imagine having to deal with what was going on in the 60s back then. So, I mean, there's definitely other levels that he dealt with that no one will ever be able to relate to. But, you know, sometimes I'm like, man, you know what? I wish I was Chris Dickerson's son or Samir Bannout's son. You know, someone where they won an Olympia, but they weren't known as the greatest bodybuilder ever. You know, besides Arnold, I literally have the biggest shoes to fill of any of the Olympias, in my opinion. And the problem is with social media now is you have to have a tough shell, because they see you all along the whole road, where back in the day you would only find out what these guys did after a show. People think that my dad popped out of my grandmother at 250 pounds. There was a time where he was growing, he was not looking that great, and in today's day, you see that. You see every day. And just like me and you had a conversation, that's something new I have to learn too. Now being a pro and traveling, I can't just let my body go. I can't just go off the deep end and get on Lee Priest level, because you are in the limelight constantly, traveling, doing guest posings, and even just appearances. So that's something new that bodybuilders today have to deal with, that you just have to just deal with it. And unfortunately, since we're the first generation dealing with social media, you know, people want to give shit about Phil all the time, about how he's mean and stuff like that. Phil's the first Mr. Olympia to deal with social media. So we're all learning from this together as we go. You know, like we look back in the old school books of the old school bodybuilders of what they did. 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, they're going to be looking at what we did with social media and how that started. So it's tough, because you don't really have a guideline to kind of stick to and how to really handle certain situations. But the social media aspect, one, it does give you avenues for financial support that you guys didn't have back in the day, but you do get hit hard from people.
Well, let me ask, we didn't have cell phones in the gym. Like, we had Walkman. You know, we had the disc player on our hip, the cassette player on our side. But how important is it? I mean, me personally, if I was bodybuilding today, my phone would stay in the car, because I'm going to work. And for that 2 hours that I'm in the gym, or at least that 1 hour that I'm pounding the weights, I don't need the music, because if I have the music, then I got my text messaging, and if I have my text messaging, I have my social media. It seems like it would be a huge distraction, but at the same time, how can you leave your phone in your car and separate yourself from it? I mean, do you struggle with that?
See, I tried that. I tried doing the anti-social media, and then when I was looking for a sponsor, and I'm thinking, I have the name, I show potential, and no one wants to sign me because of the little magical number above my followers isn't matching what they want it to be. So now exactly, I would love anything more than just to leave my phone somewhere for days and never have to deal with it ever again. But then when you're looking for financial help and sponsors, they're like, sorry, you're losing to this Joe Schmo that made a video where he's squatting some girl on his shoulders, you know, and that's tough. It's a tough bullet to swallow, because, you know, you even see now even Dexter. You know, Dexter's super old school, but he's on Snapchat. He's on everything. He's on every social media, because you have to be. And one aspect, you have to be for financial reasons, but two, that's like fans' chance to look in to finally learn what kind of person you are. Back in the day, all you would finally be able to do is wait in a line for 2 hours in an expo and finally get to meet someone. And God forbid they're on a low carb, they've been there for 5 hours, and then it's not it's not the situation you exactly wanted. And you'll hear stories of that all the time. Oh, I met this guy and he was a dick. And then you'll hear someone who's like, oh, that's the nicest bodybuilder ever. It really matters when you meet them. So social media now, you can see what kind of person they are, their personality, and a little bit insight into their life and what they deal with. But yeah, that's hard, is because you want to sometimes check out, especially right now. Me, a week out, I barely want to talk to anyone, let alone I want to answer people back on social media and stuff like that. But that's the part of being the business of bodybuilding, like you like to say. Now that's a new avenue too, and being an ambassador of the sport, you don't have that choice.
Tell me what you don't like about the sport of bodybuilding. I mean, people get in it, they see the end result. They're going to be in New York, and they're going to be excited to see you. They're going to make that connection that that's where your dad competed, and now you're competing. It's a great storyline, but what don't you like about the next week and a half's journey to your pro debut in New York? What's the part that you don't want to deal with?
I'm not really good with traveling. And right now, since I'm putting everything into this show, I want to make sure that I am my best. I've canceled all guest posing, all appearances, and that's hurting me big time financially. And I wish that I could travel, do those things, which I'm gonna have to eventually. I'm gonna have to eventually get my shit together. But that's the hardest part for me, is even just going to this guest posing last week in Pittsburgh. For some reason, my body on a plane, it just swells up so bad. I don't even know. There's like a story. I mean, Dexter's, Dexter, but this guy missed his plane in Australia, gets on the next flight, goes straight to the Arnold and wins. There's people like that where, their body's not affected at all physically, but then there's people like me where, man, I just swell up like a bean. And I don't like that I have to choose between financial compensation and doing well at a show.
So tell me about what you eat, because your food has a tendency to make you swell up as well. I do know, and I'll drop this little info on you. When you travel, stay hydrated, because water's a natural diuretic. If you're going to be on a plane for 3 or 4 hours, all the water you drink will come out. It forces it out. It's a natural diuretic. You can pay me later for that tip. But when you go to New York, it goes in and it comes right back out. Don't eat any carbs on an airplane. But what kind of foods do you eat? Because I know I was a red meat eater, and there's a lot of guys out there that just diet on fish. I preferred steak. I preferred lean ground beef. I ate chicken. What kind of foods are you eating?
Yeah, since we're trying to play the condition game, I've got away from a little bit more of the red meat. But yeah, I'm actually eating like ground turkey and chicken, and really eggs. That's pretty much it. And I've been on zero carbs for the last couple of days. So that's
zero, like zero.
Yeah. So like today, I know I had legs, so I got a half a cup of oats for my breakfast, but that was hours ago, so that's already for sure gone. But yeah, I mean that's the hard part, is the carb manipulation part of it. I mean, really, the food-wise, man, if you're doing this and there's foods that you don't like, then this isn't the sport for you. So you would join some pretty good company if you win there in New York City, but a defeat would be what? Placing out of the top 3? Yeah, absolutely. So the plan is to place in the top 3, shut it down, get my girl back, and I ran into Arnold. I got the invite for the Arnold, and that would be the next show that I'm going to be doing. All right, so the Arnold Classic potentially on the horizon, but right now, Sergio Oliva Jr. is headed to New York to make his pro debut. 1 year. It's been 1 year since you won the national championships. It's been 2 years. My bad. 2 years off the stage competitively, and big things are going to be expected of him. And as they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. Sergio Oliva Jr. on stage in New York, White Plains, New York, that is, for the very first time. It's been moved out of the city. It's going to be on May the 20th at Steve Weinberger's competition. And what do you want to say to your fans out there? I mean, I know it's a lonely, isolated road to the finish line, and you're almost at the finish line, running out of gas, running out of money. Your girl's not in town. So what do you want to say to those people that have supported you? Yeah, I mean, thank you is not even the word, because, man, especially in this sport and taking that amount of time off and to be able to have support, not getting on stage, is just, it's really unheard of. And I have such great fans and friends that have really supported me and have my back, and I want to do it for them. And come May 20th, I am going to do it for you guys, because you guys believed in me, and you didn't give up on me, and now it's time to go to class. All right, Sergio Oliva Jr., Sean Ray here at Gold's Gym Venice, MuscularDevelopment.com.